Today's guest is someone whose work immediately resonated with me because it aligns so deeply with what we talk about on this podcast. The idea that success means very little if you're abandoning yourself in the process. I'm joined by Saru Gupta, practitioner, mentor, and creator of the Whole Self Method, where she helps high-achieving women move beyond survival mode and reconnect with themselves through emotional regulation, nervous system health, and embodied leadership. Drawing on training in somatic psychotherapy, developmental trauma, attachment styles, emotional intelligence, and nervous system repair, Saru's work explores the deeper patterns that quietly shape how we lead, love, work, and move through the world. In this episode, we talk about burnout, overthinking, emotional suppression, identity, cultural conditioning, and what it actually means to feel calm, grounded, and connected to yourself again. Saru also shares her own powerful story, including the childhood stutter that emerged from ignoring her emotional world, the lessons she learned through thousands of hours of meditation, and how experiences like grief, divorce, remarriage, and living across multiple countries shaped the work she does today. This is a grounding, thoughtful conversation, and I think it will really resonate with you. Thank you for being here again for the Can I Get a Refill podcast. If you're new, I'm Steph. I'm your host, and I help women stop pouring from an empty cup and start building a life that actually supports them. Be sure to jump on the website, www.canigetarefillpodcast.com.au, linked below, to download your free ebook on 7 steps to protect your energy and fill up your cup. Every area of success in your life comes down to the relationship you have with yourself, so make sure it's a very strong one. Download it today and make yourself your number one priority. Okay, now let's jump in. Hello, my cup fillers, and welcome back to the Can I Get a Refill podcast. As just promised, we are blessed today to be joined by international guest Saru Gupta. Saru, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Steph, and I'm so excited to be here and having this chat with you.
I am too. I was just saying to you, what you do for work is so aligned with my podcast, maybe more so than any guest I've ever had. So I'm really, really excited to have a chat with you. And for those listening, Saru is joining us from Dubai at 6:30 in the morning, looking very vibrant. And the sun is so bright if you're watching on YouTube. So thank you for joining me so early. But actually, it was your request. So
yeah, it was like the sun. You have to have an early morning start here.
Is it because you said because of the noise, right?
No, it's noise as well. But like I was sharing, like the podcast is about that. Like because in summers you're always in aircon, and it's so important to be out. So early morning before the sun rises or before it gets really bright, I love just being out. So that's the reason I like starting really early.
Yes, I'm a morning girl too. I love that so much. And you said you've been in Dubai only around a year. So why Dubai? What drew you to Dubai?
It's a crazy story. I actually thought a year and a half ago, never Dubai. I really told my friends, never Dubai. And then I met my current husband, and he's like, this is my second marriage. And I had kind of like, no, I don't think. And then we met, and he's living in Dubai, and it just felt like the right move. But it's taken me a while to adapt. It's been a year, and I've been doing a lot of back and forth between Australia and Dubai.
Right. You were in Melbourne, you said, for 16 years.
16 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm just seeing a lot of very like up and coming podcasters living there. It seems like is it city culture? Like I've only been in the airport. I was saying I nearly died from the heat going on the tarmac to get my flight to Morocco. But is it very like bustling, or what's the energy like there?
It's very hustle bustle. So like I used to live in upstate New York and California before Melbourne for 16 years. And Dubai is, I would say, a mix of like, lifestyle of very hustle. Like, Australia is a little bit laid back. But Dubai is like, even if you look at the way the city is, sky rises, like, internet, it's very hustle bustle. And it's got the mix of East and West, because it's also got the facilities like, which a lot of Western countries don't. So that's why people love coming here and living. And my husband calls it, I think he loves Dubai. That's why he calls it the new London. He likes calling it. But I also think he's biased towards Dubai. He just starts a debate every time. Dubai is the best. So yeah, that's his philosophy.
That is so funny. No, it sounds like a very happening place. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's good energy to be an entrepreneur from, that's for sure. Well, we'll jump into it. Sarah, you work with high achieving women who on paper seem successful, yet internally feel exhausted or disconnected. Why do you think so many women are experiencing this right now?
This is such an important question because I think we have so many labels these days, right? It could be we have ADHD, we have perimenopause, and there is a truth about all of these labels. But there's another truth I've realized through my work. It is we're living, first of all, in uncertain times. Look at with everything that's coming, we can't deny that. I think that's a world situation. Men and women both are feeling it. But then on the other sense, women have been carrying so many roles, you know, leadership, career, motherhood, caregiving, relationships, emotional labor. And during all of this, and we have been awarded for being on top of things, right? Let's be on top of things, top of everything, you know. So what cost does it comes at? It comes at cost, like if you look at from the time we were teenagers as women, we're still in that, hustling, bustling, like that
Yeah.
energy that rises within us, the hormones that rise, it brings up different emotions. And then as life continues, we start learning to suppress because the world hasn't been built to navigate life with emotions.
Yes, that's right.
And that's the truth we can deny. So all the labels we have gotten kind of help us still avoid that fact that we haven't learned how to manage our emotions while navigating life the way life is now.
Do you know,
Probably,
Sarah, a lot of
yeah.
the episodes I do can be similar and a lot of the content might be similar, but I'm proud of that. I'm not like, oh no, I'm doubling up. You know why? Because we need to hear these messages repeated to remind ourselves to
So,
take a breather and to fill up our cups. Like truly, and no one would get in a car and drive, from Sydney to Perth and just keep pushing it with no petrol, no servicing. Like we understand that a machine needs,
needs.
servicing or something to charge it or it needs a rest. But we wear that exhaustion with a badge of honor, and women especially, as you said, we've always been rewarded for taking on all these extra roles, and
Yeah.
it's sort of we're really at that crux in society where women are shouting out saying can't do all this, need to have boundaries, need to have a rest, and then there's people coming up against us with resistance. So yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
keep repeating shows like this because I
Yeah.
think we need to remind ourselves. And I was just saying that with my last guest. We're both feeling really tired. And I'm like, yeah, like even I'm preaching these messages, but I have to actively remind myself, like I've been booking back to back guests. And I'm like, no, I'm feeling burnt out. And even though it is filling my cup, but I'm tired and when my son's in daycare, I need to be able to take some rest because when he comes home, that's my real job. That's when I'm
Yeah,
on, right?
completely. And I'm so glad you said this thing that this message needs to be repeated. And I think, I mean, I'm sure your other guests have spoken about it. It comes at a cost of self-sacrifice,
Yeah.
self-denial, self-abandonment. But I want to actually bring another thing. So even if, and I think this is something I have had to in my own journey, even if I have all the time to rest, I still don't know how to rest. And this is
Say
something
that
a
so
very
properly.
important point, which is very important for women to understand. I mean, I think there's a fine line between self-responsibility and responsibility from what being pulled. I have, after the work I've done with high achieving women and myself, my own journey has been there is something else happening under the system.
Yes.
So there we have wellness at the top level. Like the wellness industry is $1 billion. It's gone
Yes.
more
Isn't it?
than before, but yet disconnect is more than before as well. So there is something happening which is not enough. And I think it is about addressing why are we not resting when we know we need to. We're talking to high achieving women, like brilliant women who are super intelligent. So they can Google, they know what to do. But something's happening in the system that is still not getting in.
Yeah.
And
I
and
always I always say I worry. My intellect knows rest is productive. My intellect knows I need to be taking regular breaks. But there's something in my nervous system that says if you stop, if you take your foot off the gas, someone else is going to come up and grab the success you're after. And it's such horse shit because there's enough success for us all. And I truly believe in my gut that's what's destined for me is already mine. Like, you know, I'm on my way to it. But there's something about me that feels like if I'm not working hard 24/7, I'm going to drop the ball. Yes. Do you hear a lot of your high achieving clients say the same thing?
Yes, they do. But yes, 100%. Like, I mean, I have been there. And there are times when that still happens for me. I think this is the conditioning as well, which is there. But I have also realized there are others. So there is this fear of, which is a primal fear, which is human fear. Like, you know, which comes from, we can say it's not in all of us. It is there. You know, we cannot deny that we want to be better. We want to be the best. And I think that's what has helped evolution evolve. Survival, yes. Right?
Yeah.
And there is no denying that I have realized that there's something else happening in the system, which is we don't know how to process what our system's showing. So when we rest, there is freeze, there is suppression of emotions, there is memories that come up. There is, you know, so it's other things that are happening which stop us from resting.
I'm saying it because my husband and I went on a walk last night and had this exact conversation. There's a couple of people in our lives who can't be alone. They feel every moment with catching up with people and they're always saying that they're tired and exhausted. And my husband and I both, we make sense together because we're both the lone wolves of our group.
Yep.
We love alone time and we love to recharge. We give each other, it's the only relationship that's ever worked for me because we give each other space to be the individual, whereas I've had men who, you know, control. But there's people I know who will, you know, go from relationship to relationship. And then if they have time off and their kids are taken somewhere, then they're catching up with friends. And it's like, when are you sitting in the stillness or the silence, like to rest? And I know it's people who are, this is our sort of, you know, estimate of the situation is that they don't want to face certain things because they've had some emotional things happen. And I know they're running from that stillness and that silence. And is that what you were alluding towards, that it brings things up so that the stillness can feel unsafe for the nervous system for some?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it is part of it. So it's not even like they're aware of what's happening. So it's like the body is used to, but then also there is the wiring. There is a habitual pattern of just being, you know, on the wire. Like, you know, that's how you're conditioned from childhood to be like, you know. So it's not just like one. It is like, you know, when you start sitting in stillness, you know, it's hard to sit. First of all, like I remember when I started meditating 10 years ago, honestly, like I'd gone on a meditation course and because there was silence and I didn't have my phone. I'm not kidding. I could not sit still even for a minute. So because it was not a retreat. It was not a retreat where I could do yoga. I was just like sitting with myself with breath. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life. And afterwards, years afterwards, I did skydiving. And I'm like, oh, there's thrill in that. But this is nothing compared to when I had to sit. But
are you saying that the first meditation was harder than the skydiving?
100%. Like, you know, because skydiving was like, you know, jumping
the thrill,
off thrill. It was like a minute thrill.
Well, you're moving.
You're moving, right?
It was the stillness that caught you.
God, it caught me. But more than that, who I was then and who am I now, it's taken me a lot of work of trauma work. It's not just stillness. It is understanding what is driving me, what's happening in my body. There is a reason.
It is trauma. I was in a violent relationship from 2005 to 2010. And 2011, I did a meditation course, and it was, you know, it was a good year of, when I say good year, it was the year where I started the real quest to find myself. And it's, you know, been a lot of work. Now I'm in a very comfortable state, but it's, you know how sometimes to clean your house, you've got to get really messy first before it can get really clean. That was my 2011. Let's delve into all the shit inside my system. And, you know, like being in a violent relationship is a lot of stored trauma. And I had other trauma prior to that. So when I started that meditation course, Oh my God. I was so uncomfortable sitting
Yeah,
in that silence, but I hadn't gotten all the trauma out yet. So it was uncomfortable to sit with myself. And maybe someone who'd been in a violent home, stillness is dangerous because you don't know what's coming at you next. So, and this is years and years later, and I'm getting to a good place now, but there are still times when my
100%.
nervous system, yeah, like I said this, I've been trying for 7 months to fall pregnant with my second, and I haven't been able to, and I'm still fertile, but I have a hormone issue because of my body. But I've been doing a lot of work in the last few months, and I said to the doctor, "Oh, I'm not stressed." And he goes, "No, you might not be stressed in your brain, but your body hasn't caught up to that yet." And this is what I'm saying on an intellectual level. I'm telling myself, Steph, you are safer than you've ever been in this home and this life. But my nervous system isn't fully caught up to that yet, and I'm aware of that.
100%. And to be honest, like if I also think so, like, meditation, like that's one part of my training, but I'm trained in other things. Meditation can also be freeze in the body. So it's like, so I wrote an article years ago, and the reason I'm bringing this thing is so it can bring awareness. Just because we're doing all the tick boxes, which is meditation, which is yoga, which is this, doesn't mean that it's the only thing. The body might need something else. So it sometimes all the wellness tools can become another way of bypassing what's happening.
Ah, you mean like a
And
distraction?
no, because it feels good. It's soothing.
Okay.
It's
So we're
soothing.
not facing the root cause.
It's the root cause still. I mean, it is important to survive in the world, to soothe the way the world is becoming, but
Yes.
not necessarily it is the only thing. So this is something, there's
In
quite a lot
conjunction with
in
yes.
conjunction with the deeper work, what's
Yes.
happening. And I mean, in some ways, I feel like it's a better band-aid. It's a better, it can be a better band-aid. I mean, I gotta be very careful how I say this. I meditate every
Yes.
day. I'm a meditation teacher. I've trained with teachers. I have run some of their programs as well. I'm all
Yes.
for it, but I also believe it's got its own part. There's another
Yes.
part of the other work which you spoke about, like, the body is stressed. It's not, it needs other things which are
Well,
required.
this is probably controversial. I'm not a medical person. This is my opinion, but do you know much of Louise Hay's work?
Yep,
Louise Hay, the
yep.
author, yeah, how she had stage 4 cancer that she was told inoperable. So she went and did her own work and literally got rid of the cancer through all different treatments. And that she had scans to prove the cancer was gone. And meditation, self-love. She did a lot of work. But she said what I believe, because when you hear of people who get cancer and they'll have the chemo, they'll have it cut out, and then it comes back in a different body part. So like I trust doctors implicitly, and I always go do both. Take the medicine and then do the other thing to figure out the root cause. So I always believe that if you're treating that illness but not getting to the root cause of why it got there, it's going to come up again in another way. And I always talk about that all the medical issues I had while I was in that violent relationship, what I really needed to do was remove myself from the unsafe place. So yeah, getting to the root cause is very
It's very,
vital.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like for much of my life, I looked really successful on paper. This was years ago. I had built a career in US, Australia. I achieved many things like on paper, but it never felt enough. When I really look at it, like, I mean, even sitting there, I'm like, oh, but I haven't achieved much. This was years ago. Yet underneath there was exhaustion. There was emotional suppression, constant feeling that I'm always going on. Even if
Yes.
I took rest, it was never really rest. Like, it was never, I would go for
So
spa
what
days.
was that for you, Sarah? Was it you were trying to prove yourself to yourself or someone, or you were suppressing
I
your
don't think
emotions?
I don't think it's that simple because I think there
Mm.
are different things that come together. So like now after 12 years of deeper work and this body of work and having worked, yes, I can say in hindsight, I was
Yeah.
doing this and this and this. And so one thing I always say is that our childhood shapes our career, our life path, and which makes us geniuses. There's no denying it. Sometimes it can, but it also can be our human wound, which have to be healed as well. Somewhere. That's why, so like, and look at all the great people in the world. They've had some kind of stuff, happening in the childhood, which has driven them to do great things, right?
I
Like,
have always said that, like Lady Gaga being bullied at school, that
school,
helped her
yeah,
create such a beautiful
such
onstage
beautiful,
persona. Yes.
and a lot of, but then
Yep.
from the human side, when I'm saying human side, it seems like others not human, but that fire that drives also burns internally. And that's why a lot of things that are happening from burnout to all of other things, are because we haven't addressed that.
Yes. Yep.
I'm not saying the burnout is not real, but I'm also saying in
Yes.
conjunction, other work has to be done, which can address why are we pushing ourselves so much? It's
Yeah.
not just for the success. There is something else driving that pushing. And that's what needs to be addressed.
Yes. Yes. Very well said. You speak a lot about the difference between coping and being truly emotionally regulated. How can someone tell the difference between the two in their own lives?
Coping, it's when you're in that environment, when you're in coping, you can't tell you're coping because what you're seeing is you're highly functional, you're always on the go, you're on top of things, you're in control, you rely on control, you're not in close perfectionism, you're being awarded. It feels great, because at some level it feels excellent. But then on the other side, you are waking up in the middle of the night, the mind's going on. You might feel these different symptoms in the body. It could look like fight, freeze, anger. This freeze that happens, which could look like chronic fatigue at times. I look at that as well, which could be stop and start, the mind forgetting things. There are a lot of others. There are symptoms. These symptoms for coping. When you look at regulation, I mean, it's not clean. And that's the thing with all this emotional intelligence everyone's talking about. They make it sound so neat. Oh, talk about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is never neat. It's messy.
Yes.
It really isn't. Regulation can be messy in the beginning. It allows you to stay connected to yourself. So it means at times, I mean, this might not be attractive to a lot of people, but I might not be able to make sense what's happening.
Yeah.
Because that is regulation, because I am connected to myself. And we are not supposed to make sense of everything in the moment. Emotions
that's the
move.
same point as life isn't meant to be happy all the time. It's meant
not.
to ebb and flow and have
It's
highs
meant
and
to
lows. It's about how you react.
how to react to it. Yes. And
Yes.
emotions move through you. So, in a day, I will feel anger, I'll feel sadness, I'll feel happiness, I'll feel all of that. I'll have guilt come up, But then once you get used to this, then you know how to respond rather than react. Because there is a familiarity with these emotions. There's a familiarity with being messy, with the messiness of life.
Yes.
And so, for example,
I was
like
just going to say, people will repeat like dangerous or unhealthy patterns in their life because it's familiar. Because doesn't the brain or the ego want what's familiar because it feels comfortable?
100%, 100%,
Yeah.
like, and also that's what it knows. So
Yeah.
like, like there is something called like negativity bias, like, which is the mind is wired towards negativity more than the
Yes.
positivity, but there's a reason for it because it's needed for
Survival.
survival. It's needed for survival. But then because we want to avoid that, we sometimes become too positive and we want everything under control. So,
Aha.
we want everything under control. Like, life has to be perfect. Life has to be if I'm on top. And it works well for our corporate careers because it means I can be highly functional, I can be structured, I can keep going forward, I can achieve all my goals. I don't get that promotion at work, someone else does. I'm talking about someone in their 30s and then they're growing. But then
Yes.
what I can do is I can push it inside and I can work more harder while I keep denying what's happening within me as a woman. As a
Yes.
woman, so in a boardroom, someone who is at a higher position, might be carrying a lot of responsibility, seems very contained, she's coping exceptionally well. But is she actually hiding aspects of herself which are not serving her personal life? And it's not like you can't have both. Even though your question was about coping and emotional regulation, you can. But my philosophy and my whole body of work is, how do you learn to live in the messiness of life with your emotions
Yes.
and still be highly successful? So you're not denying your personal needs. So you're not denying your personal health, and it's not just about trauma. It's also about how do you kind of balance these aspects. So as a woman, and women's body has a different way a man's body is.
Yes.
We
Different
cannot
cycles.
deny it's a cycle.
But control, you said control there, and that really sparked something for me. I had a guest the other day that said she's my age, in her early to mid 40s, and said that in her 20s she was very manipulative almost because she was trying to control everything. I completely resonated with that. I feel like
Yes.
I sort of grew up around other people that were manipulating situations too, because they hadn't faced things that happened to them. And I feel I did that for a lot of my adult life, trying to control situations so that I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. And I guess meditation was that starting point to allow myself to allow things to be uncomfortable, because I often will remind myself, it's okay. Like, I'll play the worst case scenario in my head and I'll be like, it's okay. Even if that happens, you're going to be
Yeah.
okay. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of the time we're scared of what might go wrong, so we control the, you know, what other people might do. Do you find that's a bit of a common thread?
Oh my God. I think it's the most common thread for high achieving women.
Ah,
It's
right.
like it's
Control.
it's it's the common thing I've worked with women. Like, so when I say coping signs of practical signs of coping, racing mind, an ability to switch off, emotional numbness, and control
Yes.
is in the top.
Yes.
Overthinking, needing constant productivity. You know,
Yes.
these all are coping signs. Just because you're functioning doesn't mean you're regulated.
Okay,
And
because I've
and
even heard women with eating disorders say they might have had some abuse in their life, and the eating disorder was the area where they felt they had control. So
spot
it is
on.
something we lean on, isn't it? And I think especially as women, because so often in my life, control was just taken away from me, from my own life or my own body. And it's such a scary feeling to feel like you're not in control of your own path. So I feel like I'm more prone to doing that than my husband, because no one's ever tried to take his
And
autonomy or power from him.
exactly like even if you look at a woman's body, I think you brought such an
Yeah.
important point. Like,
Yeah.
our body is changing so much. It's
Yeah.
changing, like it's changing. And I mean, I always say
Yes.
that probably 100 years ago, 50 years ago, when women were not in workforce and
Yeah.
careers, and we had more time to slightly accept, more breathing space to slightly accept the changes in our body.
Yes.
It's that, and with the advancement and with our desires, and which is, I think, a fair. We want to be known for our intelligence and our brilliance, but it comes at a cost of, are we functioning along with our body? Are we
Yes.
actually? And when you talk about manipulation, like, I think I was a queen of control. And
Okay. Yep.
and like, I think we all do that. It's such a common thread. And you spoke about eating disorder. I don't think it's only eating disorder. Overworking is a sign of control in
Yeah.
some
All of it.
ways. Like
Yes.
alcohol, like anything that will make me feel on top of things so I don't have to feel
Yes.
helpless.
Yes.
Because it's the helplessness we are trying to run away from.
Yes.
And
But I
and
even see some people parent like that, in that way of control. And I'm really actively allowing my son to do things and explore and like fall over. And I know this sounds odd, but I was very much wrapped up in cotton wool. And I know that my parents wanted to protect me, but I feel like that made me trust myself less as an
spot on.
adult. So I allow my son to do things like, not extreme, jumping off buildings, but I'll allow him to do things that I know he's going to stuff up, because I know that's how he's going to learn to trust himself. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I never
that's a
asked,
great
does that make
question.
sense? But
No, no,
I
no,
hope
no,
I'm
no.
expressing that accurately.
I think that's great parenting. Like, in some ways, you're letting him figure out on his own.
Yeah, because won't
It's
he trust himself better? Because I was always taught no, we adults know better. You can't do, and like even into my adulthood, that I never trusted my voice or my ability to take care of myself. And that's why I didn't grow up emotionally until much later. I wasn't allowed the space to have say in my own life.
So, like, you just gave me such a great example. Like, this is something I used to always say to my clients and even sometimes my friends as well. I'm like, you might not feel like you owe this to yourself to get in a regulation, but you owe it to your kids. So it obviously seems like, Steph, you've done your work. So the way you're raising your, I mean, of course, we can always do more work. Like I'm always working
Yes,
on myself, on deeper
yes,
wounds and deeper regulation. But the way you're bringing your child is because you've gone through the journey. So I think I always feel like
yes.
we owe it to the next generation.
No, but that's so
If
true. And you don't
true.
want to put pressure on yourself as a mum because
No, no,
there's
no, no, no. I'm not talking
always
about that.
already
I'm
so
not
much
talking.
pressure. No, but I agree with that, Saru, because isn't my son Leo going to have a better life if I'm addressing what's not working for me? Otherwise, that stuff's going to project onto him, and he doesn't need to take on my emotional baggage. He's going to have his
100%
own
stuff in,
baggage.
in, in life. And also, I
Yes.
also feel like the generation before our parents' generation, depending on
Yeah.
which part of the world, they didn't have these privileges because the information was not there. The science was not
Nor
that
the, that's what I was
evolved.
saying, nor the
I
language.
mean, not the
Yeah.
language, not the
Mm.
science. I mean, it's quite new comparatively, the way it's
Yes.
widespread.
Yeah.
And also, they were not the dreamers. I feel like they were still the generation to kind of create the world the way it is. Our
Yes.
generation has more option, like the generation now, women in their 40s, 50s have more options, and the younger
We do.
generations.
Yeah. I
Our
have a lot of gratitude to be in this generation, even
generation,
though,
yeah.
yeah. That's why I always say I never say the good old days. Like we're very lucky with what we're allowed to do now. Not allowed, but at our fingertips. I just remembered what I was going to say earlier too. I think often too it's a sign of weakness. I was saying this with a couples therapist. People don't want to admit when something's not working in their life, and I felt like the moment I freed myself was when I started admitting I'm struggling now. You know what? I'm not doing so good. Even something as simple with my friends of if I couldn't go to something because I get really bad, I get PMDD, so I'll get really bad just before my period, and I used to, like try and hide it, like, oh, the car's broken down or something's come up, and now I'll be like, you know what, I'm not feeling mentally fit today to be around people, and I feel like I freed myself a bit when I started being honest if things weren't working well. Do you think there's an element of
Yeah.
that, especially in like the corporate world of not wanting to look like you've dropped the ball?
Yeah, I think I actually not think I know from my own experience and clients. It's because I work deeply in the emotions and the body. That's one part of my work. So I've got three. Whole self method has three distinct elements: whole self awareness, emotional body and emotional intelligence, and nervous system rewiring. Shame. So shame is such a driver, and people think shame is about, it shows up. It doesn't shows up directly in our face. It's driving. I had to experience a lot of helplessness as a child. So because I stuttered, and I'm sure everyone has their own helplessness they experienced in a different way. Something was visible. For some people, it's not. And that helplessness feeling, which drives want to control, because that helplessness also brings shame. There's real shame, like the story you said, like, so all of these emotions are driving, which are within the body at the somatic level. It's not at the intellectual level. So even if I can tell my mind, hey, there's
Yeah,
nothing to feel helpless about, or there's nothing to feel
yeah.
shameful about, I wouldn't even know when it's hit the system. And that's what's driving me to take my next action.
Yes. Yep. Wow.
That's what's happening. So you gave a great point when you started owning you're struggling.
Yeah. It's owning your story, isn't it?
It's owning your story, but at the body level, right? Like really owning that and then being able to see what's driving you.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. I love honesty. It's something that I just never did. I was always hiding things about myself before, and I'm so honest now, and I like it. I feel I've
That's
built
amazing.
far healthier relationships just by showing up as my honest self. Your work blends nervous system repair, somatic therapy, attachment work, and emotional intelligence. What shifted for you personally that made you realize healing isn't just mental, it has to involve the body as well?
It was not a clean linear line. If
It really
someone,
isn't.
it's, I am a classic intro extro. If I
Ah,
had my way, I would be hiding under the blanket and not doing this
okay.
work. I'm being very honest. If
Yeah.
someone, because it doesn't come naturally to me to want to promote myself or this work. I'm very passionate about it. So my journey was similar. I was very happy in my corporate career, and then even when I started entrepreneurship, because I really wanted to bring what I believed in into the world. When I started, it was because I was really struggling inside. The stress was showing up, and I was always stressed. And when I would go to like I was on top of things, but internally, something didn't feel. And when I would talk to people, they would say, "Oh, I'm busy," or "This, I'm stressed." That word stressed did not make sense, give me answers to what was happening in my body. I had chronic fatigue, I kept burning out. From job after job, I had different careers. I would get to the high and then I would crash again.
Mm.
And then I started my own business years ago. This was like almost 12 years ago, I'd started a startup. This was before apps became big. And it was actually a health and
Before you
wellness.
go on, let me ask you, you said you liked did you like the work you were doing?
I was actually, I won't lie.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I loved tax. I was in banking afterwards. It gave
Okay.
me purpose. I was client-facing roles. I had very intellectual and also relationship roles. I really loved them.
Mm,
So it did not, uh, it was driving me, it was giving me a purpose and I enjoyed
okay.
it. But
Yep.
because I was struggling internally and externally, I couldn't find the answer. And I still looked like I was just like everyone else. I was doing fine on paper, go
Yes.
for drinks with friends, and on Friday nights and then Saturday, Sunday, you're still working a little bit, then you're relaxing, and then Monday, same thing started. But it was the start and stop in my system. I couldn't get answers of it. And then I started my own health and wellness 12 years ago, which was called Live Being Fit at that time. It was like this whole startup with experts from all parts of the world trying to create something for high achieving individuals. 6 months into that, I crashed again and I
Oh
couldn't
dear.
figure it out. I'm like, what's going on here? Here I am working with the top experts and I'm crashing again. And that's
Mm,
when my real journey started. That's when I started to question, so where is the wellness not bringing the bridge to what's actually happening in the real
yes.
world? And
Yep.
that's when slowly, steadily, my own journey, I started meditating. When that brought up stuff, then I started personal development. Then I started getting curiosity about somatic work, started training into that. That didn't give me the full answer. Then I started looking at attachment styles because my relationship was struggling and the way I was
Mm,
showing up. And slowly, steadily, like the different modalities you explained, it was not a linear process of, hey, I need body. It was more about my mind still going crazy. Why is it going
yes.
crazy? And
Yes.
I'm meditating and it's bringing stuff up, but when I'm out in the world, I can't bridge the gap.
Yes.
Why can't I bridge the gap? And and through this work, I realized, oh, there's stuff happening in the body, and body has more information than mind can ever bring because body takes time to process. Mind's going so fast. It's so I hope that answers the question. So
Yeah.
it was not like a linear insight I had one day. Saru, you need to do body, or I listened
It's
to some
such a
experts.
journey.
It was such a journey,
And
and
it's ongoing. It's always ongoing, isn't
it's
it?
always
But
ongoing.
is there like a time delay between the mind and the body for the body to understand?
Oh, spot on. I mean, I think there's a big delay also because we are used to listening to the mind. The body has to wake up in some ways, the way we have become. Our bodies are in some ways frozen. They're frozen. Like I always used to say, there's a word I used to learn, landing. Am I landed in my body? I might be doing yoga, but am I really in my body? So even
So
sometimes
many times you're not. You're just going through the motions,
to going
right?
to the motion, or even when I'm breathing, when I have like years ago, my breath used to be short. It's kind of developed on its own. I don't believe in the long breath, inhale, exhale, because am I is my body still online? Or is it just my breath going up and down? And I can still control my mind, but I'm actually not really embodied. I'm really not in the visceral sensation of my body. Because when I'll be in the visceral sensation, it's going to bring up different stuff for me. And that's where I think the bridge between mindfulness and somatic work and nervous system work is important. It's not just one or the other. You cannot just do trauma work and not bring embodiment by learning to sit in the body.
Yes.
Does that answer your question? Like it's
But
both.
everything's holistic. It's like you can't go to the gym and lift weights and then smoke a pack of cigarettes and say you're healthy. It's got to be a holistic thing of
It's got to
working
be a
on the
holistic
body
thing.
as a whole. Yes. No, I absolutely agree with that. And it's sort of a domino effect, isn't it? Once you start fixing one area of your life, you want to start fixing
Yep.
the
And
areas.
and then insight creates awareness. So like in some ways, like what we're talking about is insight. We're talking about discussion, but embodiment creates change. So we can be insightful, right? Like I know this, I can explain my emotions, I can talk about my emotions, but that's a insight. That's just awareness.
Oh,
Embodiment is
body
at the body
creates
level. That's
change.
what creates change.
Okay, that's a really good point because there's a lot of people that say, you can read all these books, but if you're not actively implementing anything in them, it's really just entertainment, isn't it? It's just going in one ear and out the other. Embodiment creates change.
Like
Yes.
like you can do emotional intelligence courses. It's
Yes.
all nicely packed, like science is packed it very nicely, intelligently. But when emotions rise, there are five emotions at one time. I was telling a client the other day, last week, because I wanted to explain to them this is natural. I woke up in the morning at 5 a.m., sorry, 1 a.m., and I couldn't understand. And when I started journaling, because I'm very aware of what's happening, literally I had five emotions show up at the same time: shame, fear, anger, grief, and confusion. It's ability to kind of understand and learn to navigate those emotions. And that's what's happening in the world at the moment. We are caught up in our emotions.
Yes. Yes. Look, embodiment, yes, that's when the change happens, but awareness is such a great place to start. And
Spot on.
yeah, one of my loveliest compliments is someone who said to me, "You're very self-aware." I was like, "Thank you." Like I really took that as such a compliment. But I just find the people I clash with are the people who don't have the self-awareness. And I know that you can't preach to people, that you have to just sort of lead by example and let people do them. But I'm like, you're poisoning my chi because you don't have self-awareness. Don't you think that self-aware people are just they have more compassion or grace for others, and it creates just a nicer environment?
It does. So that's why, like, the one umbrella of whole self method is whole self awareness. So awareness is so important. Like, otherwise, you can work with a coach, you can work with a therapist, but it's while you're working with them. But it's only when you create self awareness over a period of time that you can change yourself. And then you have enough embodiment tools, how to navigate your emotions, how to work with your nervous system. You become like a whole functioning machine on your own. And then you can say awareness is definitely the first step. But then after that, there are other steps. And of course, Steph, you have done a lot of work, the way you're saying. So for you, awareness probably comes very naturally now. But I'm
Now,
talking
yes,
about,
not
yes,
before.
but
Everything was suppressed.
yeah, likewise, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about when we are only feeding awareness through intellect, but not bringing the body in or the nervous system or the emotions really in, the change is not going to happen.
So that's such a great sort of advert for what you do. I was going to ask you what you do with your work, but you described it so beautifully there with that whole self method. It's what did you say? You become a whole machine. What did you say?
So you become like a whole function, like whole, I always
Yeah.
say like you become like a separate organism. I forgot the word I used. It just came,
Mm,
but I
mm.
always tell my clients, so like clients who worked with me 2 years ago, and even now someone gave me another review recently. Their life has changed because the system has changed internally. When your
Mm.
system changes, you kind of become like a new whole organism, which
I
knows how
love
to
that.
function, and that's what the whole self method is all about.
No,
It's
but you do have to do it internally. Like people will move across country or move interstate. Your problems are going to follow you. It's not necessarily just the environment. You need to work on the inside first. Yep.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. This is what I actually realized when I quit my job and then I started my business and then I went back to corporate after that. I'm like, so the person who actually quit her job, because everyone said corporate is evil, and that's what I believe too, and then I went to my business and I'm like, 6 months to 1 year, I'm crashing again. So
Again,
the person who's moving is me.
I hear it.
Yeah.
I
It was
said to my husband,
such a humbling.
2025, it humbling. I said, my husband, 2025 was so freaking hard because I started the year by going straight back to work when my son was 5.5 months old. A few months later, I quit. And then I was grateful to be with him, but then we were stressed trying to figure out how we were going to make the money. And I said, it's only now, halfway through 2026, that we're both feeling so in joy and abundant in our lives because, we had to, like I said, you got to make a big mess first before you really clean it
Yes.
all up. And that was 2025 was messy. This year is feeling
And
very joyous and abundant. So,
oh, thank you for
yeah.
sharing that. That is such an important point, Steph. A lot of people wouldn't say, I always say, there's genius in messiness. That's a line I
There
always use.
is.
There's a genius. Our genius comes in messiness. One of my mentors used to say that years ago. There's a
Yes,
genius in messiness.
there is. Would you like to see the crayon drawings I've let my son do all over my
Please, I would
computer?
love to. I would
I was like,
love.
look, he's in his zone. I'll figure out later which cleaning products will get that off.
But aren't kids genius in some ways? I would
I
say.
love watching him in his element. He really looks like a little Picasso. The way I think my husband wants him to be very sporty, and I think he's taking after the very artistic side of my side. And he runs around looking at what he can draw in, and he's really passionate when he draws. And I'm like, oh, I love watching it. They're in their zone of genius, aren't they, when they concentrate?
Um,
It's a
yeah.
beautiful thing to watch. Speaking of children, you've shared that as a child, you developed a stutter from suppressing your emotional self. This was the question I was most interested to ask you, Saru. Looking back now, what do you think that younger version of you was trying to communicate?
I think there was a lot of fear and a lot of change. So when I look back, my parents had moved from a smaller town to a bigger town.
In
And
India?
in India, so I was born in India. I was raised in India. I was in India till I was 20. And then after that, I moved to US and then Australia and now in Dubai. So I've pretty much lived my life mid East and West. So I consider
Yes.
myself a
Yep.
mix. So my parents had moved from a smaller town from India to a bigger town. And there was a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. And now looking back, I can see I was a very sensitive child, but more than that,
Yes.
I think also the fear I took in, the emotions, like not being able to express what I'm feeling because as children, and I think this goes on to probably a story which you shared, you feel like with the child, we spoke about how with children, if we are not aware as parents, we don't know what we are passing on. And because probably as a child, I picked up my parents' fear when they moved from a small town to a bigger town and had to make ends meet and start life again. And my father had to start a new business. My mom and like my parents are doing really well now, but it was a
Yeah.
long journey of struggle and trying to make ends meet for a while.
Yeah.
I picked up their emotions. I picked
Yes.
up a lot of stuff, and I didn't have places to go and talk. And I still remember the first time when I joined the school in Chandigarh, where my parents moved a town in India, which is actually a very beautiful town, which is not like rest of India. It was designed by a French architect. So it's
Ah,
a newer
yes.
town. It's like a 60-year-old town. Um, I went to school and I was asked to introduce. And I still remember that memory. I've worked a lot on this aspect of myself, but when I was asked to introduce, I stood up and the word that came stuttered, and everyone started laughing.
Oh,
And that started a new journey
that's
of
trauma.
it's a
That's trauma.
trauma. It's like it was
Yeah.
like a long journey of a lot of stuttering, disassociation from myself. I would go to school and kids would start mocking me. And that was pretty much it doesn't mean that I didn't know. I was very creative as a child, but that also meant it shaped up a lot of my life. And
Yes.
I can only see it now, because I still went and did my MBA. I did great things in life. But that little girl who stuttered and who didn't feel safe and who learned it's not safe to express. It's not safe to share my fear because others around me can't hold me, always kind of was underplay. And I think she can still come online. And I think that's where also the control comes in. And probably a lot of people can relate because they have their own different stories, which like mine was so visible, stuttering. So I had to kind of go and look at it, what's happening. But a lot of people, the stories are not that visible, but something is still driving them to do what they're doing. And it's just happening within.
Yes. Yeah. And you might not have the language or you don't have the language or the understanding of it until you're an adult. You sort of just, when you're a kid, you just, well, this is my life. This is this is how it is. You don't really question things as much. And there's certainly, I think the older generation thinks we're pointing the finger of blame, but we're not. Like, I'm immensely grateful for the way my family took care of me as a child and how hard my dad worked. My dad came from Sicily and came here not
Yeah.
speaking a word of English and, built his business and took care of all of us. And it was a single income home for so long. But there's definitely, they didn't have the language to deal with their emotions, that generation, that whole generation. All my friends say the same thing about their parents. And I feel there was a lot of, as I was just a deeply emotional, sensitive, empathetic child, and an adult as well. And I feel there was a sense of, and this is where my control came from. I think I wanted to make sure that everyone was happy in the home, or
Yeah.
it meant emotional instability for me. If someone was going to be upset, I knew I was going to have a bad night. So I just want to make sure everyone's okay. And I feel like there's a part of me that still tries to do that, but they didn't have the language to deal with their own emotions, and I think that's why our generation as children took that on. Would you agree?
Yeah. Oh, I think I think you're sharing something similar to what I just shared, right? Like it seems like your journey as well. So
Yeah.
Italian, I mean, culture is also very passionate. Like Indian culture can be like very
Yes.
emotionally like available. Like when I say available, like very in touch with, but it can have strong emotions as well. So in
Yes.
some ways, and that generation, it could be in any culture. I think the focus was not given that much to children's. Again, I'm not pointing blame, but this knowledge is
No.
quite new how to bring up. Like when I look at my friends raising kids now or my nieces, nephews, oh my God,
So different.
it's so different, so different.
Yeah.
And those generations, they didn't have an option. Like you said,
No.
like your parents came and they had to work hard. My dad came from a
Yes.
smaller town to big town, had to work hard. So there was no availability I mean, they provided for me, they raised me well, but no availability for my emotional needs. And also,
No,
they were
but
not
like the
taught to
mothers
that.
didn't even have mother groups to get together and talk
It's
about,
got,
hey,
yeah,
parenting's really freaking hard.
God,
Like they
they
just had to
didn't.
deal with it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they had to deal with it. And that's true for some cultures like Italian, Indian, but I've also worked with so many clients from American cultures, where it's a similar thing, but their struggles are different. They're
Different.
just taught to have everything together, and just go on with life. And that means a different kind of suppression, right? Where you just
Oh, I
become,
think it's, yeah, definitely cultural, but I still think it's more generational because I'll see, like the younger relatives in Sicily being so different to the way my dad and his siblings
oh,
were.
100%. No, no,
Yeah.
100%. I agree
Yeah.
with you. But I'm saying it's generational, but across
Yes.
different cultures, it's the same thing.
Totally.
It's the same thing. It just shows up in a different way. It shows up in a
Totally.
different.
Because I actually prefer the Sicilian way where it was like
Me too.
yell
Me
and
too.
get your emotions out
Like
because it was
Indian age.
communicative. Whereas
Yes.
the Aussie side was more like manipulative and passive aggressive and like not show emotion and
100%.
not.
100%. Like my
I like that makes me feel way more walking on eggshells. Like I'd rather let's yell and just get it out. And that's how I have with my husband. Like, let's just talk about our feelings and let's just get it out now and deal with it.
This
Yeah,
is
I prefer communication, even if it is a bit yelly.
no, this is funny. So my family is like that. They're very and they can get mad and angry. And I think as a child, because I put a lot of fear in, even though I can be like that, I kind of suppress that. And my current husband's like that, very passionate. And it's taken me some time to get used to, even though I'm very passionate myself. And I
Yeah.
agree with you. Like then there's
Yeah.
just honesty. There is you know at the face value what you're getting. And it just
Oh, I
means you
much
get it.
prefer it.
Me too,
I
and me
hate
too.
walking on eggshells. I just want to let's deal
Likewise.
with things now. Yeah.
Now and get it done with.
Yeah. I think my personality is just more the Sicilian side. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
so
mine too.
funny. Yeah. So interesting. Well, that's why probably why when different cultures marry, things arise. You know, like when my husband and I, we understand each other now, but when we first got together, I think he was a bit like, whoa, I can't deal with all of this emotion coming at me, you know? And I was like, I would get worse because he's not communicating, so I'd get all up in my head. So it definitely took a good 6 months to understand each other, and now we get it, you know? But yeah, different cultures can bring up the different upbringings for sure. Okay, you've given such wonderful insights today, Sarah, and I feel like you and I could really, we understand each other very well, and we could
Really
have a lot more to talk about. Yeah, very much. So we'll keep in touch online for sure. But this show is all about filling up your cup. So what's something you'll be doing in the next week to fill up your cup?
So something I do actually pretty much every day is meditation. I like some things I do every day is like movement of the body, movement of mind, connecting with my feelings. So like I kind of really make space for that. Something I'm really looking forward to doing this week is actually my father is traveling to spend one day with me, and my relationship has changed quite a lot with him as I have learned to settle more in myself as a woman. And when I'm not always in the high achieving, like highly functioning role. And I think that's allowed me to soften for men in my life. Like, I'll be honest with you, this was like a struggle. I didn't think of it as a struggle years ago, but it allows me to soften for men in my life. Where,
Okay, so what you're describing is getting into your feminine energy, and not in
yes,
terms of male, female, but
no,
you
no,
know,
but
the
but
feminine is the being
just
energy.
being energy, and it allows me
Mm.
to just, and I think that's how I fill my cup. So when I'm always on the go, and that's taken me years of practice, it's not this energy doesn't come through, doing yoga, or it doesn't just come through going for spa days. It's actually come through working with my emotions, having ability to sit still, having ability to go with the flow of the body rather than the mind, rather than being in the push. And that's how I kind of fill my cup. And I'm really looking forward to doing that this weekend with my father rather than just with myself.
So lovely. You're very insightful, you're very self-aware, but you really embody what you talk about. I love that so much. But I really like how relationships with parents as we've gotten older can be complicated. So I like how you said those relationships have improved as you've settled into yourself more. That's really beautiful. I like that so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today. It's been very vulnerable and really beautiful. And I think the audience will take so much away from this. And everyone, check out the show notes because I'm going to link everything for you in there, Saru, so everyone can check you out if they want to work with you further. But thank you so much for your time today.
And I also want to say thank you so much, Steph, for your honesty and bringing such an authentic self and like really going deep with me. Because it makes such a big difference who's asking you the questions and if they're willing to go there as well. So
Ah,
thank you so much. I've
yeah.
really enjoyed this chat with you.
I appreciate that very much because I don't look at myself as an interviewer. I look at myself as having joint discussions. And so if people think, oh, I'm like, I'm not Oprah. I'm not interviewing. I'm here to get deep and have a conversation, but I want to talk just as much as my guests to share. But I find the more I share, the more they're willing to share. So
I love that.
thank you. I appreciate that very much. Oh, thank you so much. I really love that. And you enjoy your time with your father. That sounds lovely.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And everybody, please do something in the next week to fill up your cup.